Knowledge is power. Make an impact by learning more. Call us right now for more help at 866-945-8070. Let me start the recording, and then we're going to go live on Facebook, and then we are going to get this party started. I almost said something else. I should share it on BQE's software's page. That'd be funny. What's Seth David doing on our page live on Facebook? All right, preparing the live stream webinar. It's setting up my webinar for Facebook Live. Done. Redirecting to Facebook Live page. Wait. All right, good morning. Happy Friday. It's 8 o'clock, and I'm interrupting myself because the live feed started actually playing back. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, Adam. Good morning, Tiffany. Good morning, Gina. Good morning, John. Jingle.
I have a question.
Larry.
Morning, on Facebook Live.
What?
On Facebook Live, how do you know what's on? I mean, are you just like on Facebook and all of a sudden you disappear?
Well, when I'm doing it through Zoom, what you just heard me reciting verbally was the prompts I was getting on screen.
No, but I mean, if you're on Facebook, how would you know you're on? I mean, if you're on would it just sort of pop up as a notification?
No, it launches open the tab when I do it. And once it finished all those prompts that I was sort of reading through, it took me to the page, and I'm looking at it on my other screen right now. In fact, I see your lovely mug on my Facebook page.
Okay.
So yeah, it gives me a notification, and then now I'm going to take the URL for the live feed and paste it into the Between Wall and Main group so that people can watch in either place, because it will render the live feed right in the group when I paste the URL in. So drop the URL in, and now I'm going to say, and we're live. Hacking, what did I call this one? Hacking data.
Or Excel.
In Microsoft Excel. And I have a very, very, very special show planned for you all today. First of all, credit where credit's due. This is inspired by Larry DeForest. He reached out to me yesterday evening. I had not yet even set up today's webinar because I didn't have a topic really. And I asked Larry for suggestions, and he gave me some suggestions, and ultimately this is what I decided to do based on Larry's suggestions, was hacking data in Microsoft Excel. And
he's doing that, so if it all goes wrong, you know who to blame, right?
Exactly. It's all Larry's fault. If I screw up today, Larry's fault. By the way, he lives on Long Island in New York. Just look him up.
And lurks as the dragon.
What's that?
And he lurks as the dragon.
He lurks as the dragon. That is correct. That is correct. All right, I'm bringing up Evernote because why is Evernote confirming my email address? Don't confirm my email address. I'll let you know if it changes. All right, so I'm going to bring up, I actually prepared for this today. Imagine that. I was up late last night, burning the midnight oil, getting ready because I do it all for you. And now that I'm doing it all for you, where is that reminder? There is a way to jump. There it is. Evernote has a way to jump now directly to a notebook that didn't used to always be there before. All right, so a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, it's official. I'm speaking at QuickBooks Connect Toronto. I'm on a panel there. Intuit Canada is flying me into Toronto first week of December. I assume they just put up the speaker page yesterday because all of a sudden I started getting messages from people. And I said, yes, I am speaking at QuickBooks Connect Canada, just as I'm speaking at QuickBooks Connect San Jose, USA. And QuickBooks Connect San Jose, USA, November 15th through 17th. I will be there a couple days before that for Intuit's VIP Summit. And QuickBooks Connect Toronto is going to be the first week of December. So I think I'm actually flying up for the whole week and spending the whole week there, hanging out with my Canadian friends like Tiffany Stewart, who's here with us this morning. Yay!
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We're going to be having a party on the 3rd. You have to make sure that you're there on the 3rd. There's a big pre-event.
And I'm invited?
You absolutely are.
Excellent. Excellent. What else do we have to do housekeeping-wise? Of course, this and every other Zoom that we do every single week is sponsored by the one and only Nerd Enterprises Incorporated. Of course, that's because that's me, and I'm the one doing it. And I do it all, and like I said before, I think we went live officially, I do it all for you. So a couple quick things. If you love what you see today, and I sincerely hope that you will, please consider signing up for my 97 and Up program. 97 and Up is a place where you can come twice a week live in Zoom, just like we are here today, and you can ask me questions, and we can go over whatever you want. So if you like the Excel stuff we're going to go over and you want to learn more of that, then you can come online on Tuesday or Thursday and say, hey, Seth, I'd love to see more of that Excel stuff, and I could spend an hour doing more Excel stuff with you. Or you might private message me in our private Slack team and say, hey, Seth, I'm having trouble getting new clients. And I'll say, great, let's work on that. Let's leverage your assets. Let's figure out what we can do to build your email list, to update or clean up your website, and do whatever it's going to take to help you bring new clients in. I've got a program and an outline written that's really designed for every stage of your business from the ground up, from starting, restarting, and growing your practice to creating that inbound online lead generation engine that comes about when you produce content, blogs, videos, and I teach you how to do all of that. Right, Mike? Mike is nodding. Yes, his mic is muted. I was going to say his mute is mic'd.
Yes.
Mike's mute is mic'd.
It almost sounds like you were referencing something that took place recently in private message Slack.
I guess it was fresh in my mind. So once you're signed up for that, of course, you go to subscription-based training here, and you'll have access to all the courses, including this one, Business Management in the Cloud. And we now have, we just published 3 or 4 new posts this week. In fact, I published them right in front of the group as part of a way of teaching people how to use WordPress and how to get content like this published. In the course itself, we now have 27 lessons live, all the way down to how to use Yoast SEO to optimize your writing. So we literally teach you how to optimize your content for SEO purposes using a WordPress plugin called Yoast SEO. So 97 and up, please consider it strongly, consider it greatly, and I'd love to have any and all of you in there. I think we have a lot of fun as well as learning quite a bit. So, all right, everybody ready for Excel? For hacking data in Excel? I want to preface this by saying next week we're going to do the same exact thing in Google Sheets. I'm almost not even kidding. I think I want to do that to show you, that you can do all the same stuff pretty much in both. And really where a lot of this comes from, a lot of the stuff that I do because things do tend to be fresh in my mind based on what I've experienced just recently. And earlier this week, I was working with a bookkeeper who, hires me monthly for some one-on-one help. And we were going over one of her clients who is an e-commerce company. And I've been working with more e-commerce companies this year and experiencing this case where you have like different sales channels, right? I'm selling on Amazon. I'm selling on eBay. I have my own website that I'm selling on. I'm using Shopify. I have all these sales channels and all these products that I sell, and the SKUs might vary from one channel to another, right? So one of the processes that I've developed this year based on this experience is a project that I create now in Smartsheet for every new e-commerce client, where we have to map our master SKU list, which is really what the SKU list is going to look like in QuickBooks Online. And then for each sales channel, what the corresponding SKU might be for that particular product, right? So the moral of the story is we're doing a lot of spreadsheet work to organize and clean this kind of data up. And that's the other, aside from being inspired by Larry, I took that inspiration a step further in terms of thinking about what kind of context I wanted to give to doing something like this. So I've got sample sales data. This is actually something I got from a client of mine many years ago who was taking a course in Excel, and she'd hired me to help her, teach her how to do like filtering and sorting and subtotaling and that sort of thing. So I purposely saved the data that we use, the sample data, because it really comes in handy in cases exactly like today's. Now, I didn't get a chance this morning to go in and look at the registrations to see if anybody had asked any specific questions. So if you do have any questions, and because as you all well know, I can talk in a single breath for the whole hour, feel free to interrupt and ask me any questions you have, because I want to make sure I cover them, answer them, and give you absolutely everything that you need, want, and love on this very wonderful morning. Let me check our participant queue, see if there's anybody else trying to get in. There we go. So yeah, just unmute, because I'm not going to necessarily be looking at the chat. So unmute, ask your questions. Or Gina, if you want to keep your eyes on the chat for me and interrupt me and let me know if there's questions in the chat, you're always a tremendous help.
Thank you.
So the first thing I wanted to show you, and some of this is going to be academic, but remember that this is being recorded and there may be others who stumble on this later who don't know everything that we all know. So the first thing we may want to do when we're looking at a data set like this, and I've got a SKU number, and I actually worked really hard last night building my SKU number list, and I'm going to explain exactly what I did there. The category name, and these are orders. This is actually sales data. So we have last name, first name, the country that they're in, the order date, the product that they ordered, unit price, of course, quantity, and a discount level, right? So that's the data set that we're working with. Let's quickly, might as well, since we have the data here and it's very easy to do, let's create an order total column. So I'm going to insert a column here. Oops. And obviously that's simply a function of the unit purchase price times the quantity. All right, and then I can just copy and paste that down. Control C, Control V. And what I did, by the way, and I went through that very quickly, but I want to slow down on that and kind of explain what I just did, from what I call a navigational standpoint. Learning how to navigate around a spreadsheet is going to save you a lot of time, especially when you have a large volume of data like this that you need to cut up and cut it up quickly. There's 2,155 line items in the spreadsheet, right, with data in it. Right, so already that's even getting kind of big, right? So you want to know how to get around this fast. So the first thing I did was I wrote the formula. You saw me do that, right? We took the purchase price times the quantity to get the total. Now I press Control C to copy it. But if I just, I can do Shift down arrow, right? And I can scroll down very slowly that way. I can even do Shift page down to do what's called a large scroll, and that goes a page at a time. But as you can see, I'm already only at not even 1,000 yet, right? And if I had 5,000 rows, then I really don't want to do it that way. So if I go over to a column like the quantity, where I know this has something in every single row, Control and the down arrow key takes me straight and immediately in one click, essentially, to the very last row, right? So now I know I'm at the very bottom of where I need to be. And then Control Shift up arrow will get me straight back up with that entire range highlighted, right? And now I can press Control V so that that's how I was able to very quickly get that whole range pasted in with the formula, right? So, reviewing that again and doing it very quickly.
Hey, Seth?
Yes, sir.
I think if you double-click on the lower right-hand corner, it'll fill it down also.
The problem with that, I believe, is it's going to fill it down to the very bottom of the spreadsheet, not just the bottom of the range. Let's see. You may be right. I'm weary about using some of those commands, especially the autofill, because they often don't sort of behave the way you want them to.
The thing is, it'll stop at the first blank row to the left.
It will do that. Okay, then that works. That's another way. Thank you, Dennis. That works. Yeah, see, I don't always trust those things. My concern would have been that it would go past and all the way down to the bottom of the spreadsheet, and then I'd have to delete all the extras.
It would have stopped, say, for example, if there had been a blank cell on the quantity. That's where it would have stopped.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. So that's certainly another way to do it. And again, just the way I was, sort of proposing to do it, Control C, Control down arrow, Shift up, Control V, right? And because the other thing that does is I get to visually see it before I actually paste it, that I'm here, I'm in the right place, no question, right? Now, the next thing is I don't love the way the numbers here are formatted. So let's get those formatted. I prefer the comma formatting for all numbers, even if they're dollars. I just feel like it lines up better and it looks cleaner to me. And then we have the discount level, which is a percentage. So let's get that formatted better as a percentage. It's by default there, but I want 2 decimal places so everything lines up. Why, I offended somebody already? We lost someone? Okay. So I like this, formatting better. I like to have things line up. This is my my OCD kicking in here. So now earlier this week, I had a situation with a bookkeeper who I was working with, who had a set of SKUs, kind of like this, right? And where every one of them began with the letter Z. But her SKUs in QBO didn't have that preceding letter Z. She wanted to get rid of them all. So the challenge was, and I had to ask her this question, this assumes that the person I'm asking the question understands how the SKUs are sort of organized or created. I said, is it possible that there could be another Z somewhere in these SKU numbers? And she said, no. The only Z's that would appear anywhere would be this leading Z that's at the beginning of every single SKU. I said, great. So here's a really quick way, and I'm going to show you several ways. We're going to go back and redo this that you could approach getting rid of the Z that's at the beginning of the SKU. So Control-Shift-Down arrow highlights everything down to the end for sure. And we're going to do a simple search and replace. We're going to search for the letter Z and replace it with nothing, right? So we're going to do a deliberate replace blank. So Control-F, I'll type in the letter Z. We go to replace, and I just leave it blank and say replace all. All done. We made 2,155 replacements. Now, that's a good clue that it worked right because I know that I have 2,155 rows in the range, right? Not counting the first row. That's why it's really 2156 in terms of the row number. So I click OK. I click Close. And very quickly, I got rid of all my Zs. But that, again, relied on a certain logic that I knew that there was never going to be another Z anywhere in these SKU numbers. If there was, that way of doing it would have failed. So I'm going to hit Control-Z, which is undo, to undo that last action and get the Z's back in there. And I'll show you a few other ways that you could do this. So the next way, if I highlight the entire range again, we're going to go into our Data tab. And we're going to go here to where it says Text to Columns. Okay, we're going to do Fixed Width. And then I click Next. And then I just click very gently right in there. It's probably a little hard to see on the screens. There's no way I can zoom in on this, unfortunately. And so but you can see I've inserted this line exactly where the Z appears. And once again, the reason this works is because I'm relying on the assumption that everything starts with a Z. In other words, if any of these didn't have a Z in the beginning of it, this method wouldn't work. Right? So I'm counting on everything starting with a Z in order to do it this way. And now when I go to the next screen, it's broken up into 2 columns. The first column is very narrow, so it's hard to see. But what I want to do is have that column selected. Right? See, right now the right column is selected. Here, the tiny little left column is selected. I don't know if you can resize these. You can't. But while that first column that now is designated as the thing that's got all the Z's in it, I could click Do Not Import Column or Skip, right? And then I click Finish. And once again, all of my Z's are gone. All right. We're going to undo that last action so I get my Z's back. Now, the way this SKU is organized, let's widen up the column a little bit, excuse me, is I have the letter Z, and then I created these SKUs last night. So I have it's really the category code, which is DYP, is dairy products, right? Dash, and a product code. And the first 3 letters in the product code are really a numeric category code. And then the decimal and the number that appears after it is the actual product code. So combined, 108.1 is mozzarella di Giovanni, which is part of dairy products, right? So now let's sort these so you can see exactly how this is organized. At the moment, this is sorted by order date. So I'm going to highlight the whole range, and we're already in the data tab. Use this sort option as a default. First of all, if I click here, it's still not going to know. Well, it's going to assume I want to sort by the leftmost column in the selected range, right? But using this is sort of a safer bet where you can be more deliberate about what you want to sort, especially if you want a multi-level sort. So I may want to sort first by SKU, but then I want to add a level, and within that I want to sort by order date, let's say, right? So I tend to defer to this rather than doing the quick sort options, because the quick sort options sometimes get me into trouble, whereas this, like I said, I can be very deliberate and be certain about exactly what I'm sorting. So now I've got it sorted by SKU, so you can kind of see. So, again, ignore the Z. BVG is obviously beverages. 107 is the product category of beverages. And .1 is this product here. I don't even want to try and pronounce it. It looks like some kind of a French name. C'est de blaye, something like that. Anybody here speak French? Nobody speaks French. Okay. So if I go down now, I'll just page down real quick to get to the next one. I guess it wasn't that far down. Now we have, 107 is still there because we're still in the beverages, but it's a different product, right? So that's .10. So, the point being, I constructed the SKU, and the SKU number itself it has its own way of telling you, what we're looking at, what each component is. So I know I'm in beverages, right? And it's product number 10, essentially. And it's just that the product, it's the category of product has two ways of designating it. One is alpha, one is numeric. That's really how I construct it.
Another example of why naming conventions are very important. And you want to think about that before you start your product list and you have 2,000 items in your product.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it is. And you want different ways, because now look what we can do with this. Let's insert a couple of columns. And then we want product code and product number. Right? In the description for today, I said we were going to pull this stuff apart and put it back together again. Let me quickly jump over onto Facebook and see if we have any questions or comments there. Nope, just a bunch of people joined. Excellent. So we're going to pull this apart. Basically, what I really want out of this is that the first three letters that appear after the Z, right? So in this case, I might want to actually eliminate the Z, because the Z is kind of useless to me at this point, right? So let's do that search and replace. Find Z, replace it with nothing. Again, I know this is going to work because I know there's no other Z's anywhere in any of these product codes. So now that makes it really easy, because now what I also know is that the first three letters in every SKU is the product code, right? So there's a great little formula I can use to grab this. Equals left, open parentheses. I point to, the cell in column A, the cell that's to my left, comma 3. I just want the first three letters of the SKU so I can get my product codes out of them. Right, and again, we can copy that down. Let's use Dennis's trick. We'll just use the autofill, double click. And you can kind of test it to see that that worked across the board, right? Now we want the product number. Now the product number is a little trickier. I could use an equals right formula, but remember, some of them have a one-digit number after the decimal, and some have two. If the number of products in a particular category went beyond 9, we got to .10. So this one's going to be a little trickier to pull out. I can't just do write something. But here's what I can do. That'll make it really easy. First thing, we're just going to copy the SKUs over. into the product number. So we're going to take the whole SKU, because I don't want to lose the SKU. I want to keep that intact, right? But I want to get a copy of it so that from here I can extract just the numeric part of it, right? The product number. So now that I've got that in there, let me get rid of my find and replace screen. We're going to highlight the entire range. We're going to go data and text to columns. But watch this trick. This time we're not going to do fixed width. We're going to do delimited, right? And delimited means that there is some kind of a character in this data set that I can use to say split it up at this particular point. And that's called the delimiter, right? So in this case, I know that I have a dash in between the product code and the product number in every single SKU. So I'm going to use that. So I go next, and the default delimiter is a tab. Doesn't matter, you can leave that checked off. But I'm going to check other and hit a dash here. And you see in the preview, it immediately split it up exactly the way I want it to. Everybody see that? And I'll click next. And in this case, I do not want the first column. I only want, you know, what's in the second column here. So with the first column selected, I check off do not import column, finish, and now I've got my product number.
Getting some thumbs up on Facebook.
Let's go look. Let's go look. I love validation. I love
Well, it went by too quickly.
Oh.
I mean, it goes by and now there's, you know, I'm just letting you know. People
All right,
are
cool.
thumbs upping you.
So people like it. Good.
They like it.
They like me. They really like me.
Oh, we're getting lots of thumbs up now. Go
Oh, here
look.
we go. All right.
And
Yeah.
hearts. People are hearting you.
I even got some love.
Yeah.
I even got some love. Cool. So, and remember, the name of the game here is, you know, I have a big data set. I need to cut this stuff up quickly. And one of the reasons I like to take data like this and extract it into separate columns is that it can be very useful in terms of reporting on that data, especially, which we're going to get into at the end of the hour, if I want to do something like a pivot table, right? Because now I can easily report based on product code or based on product number separately and not just by SKU. So that's what we just did here is we got rid of the Z's, which we didn't really need. And then I still have my original SKU. And heck, if I wanted to throw the Z back in there, that's very easy to do. Does anybody want to see how that's done? I can't use undo anymore because I've gone way past that, right? Anybody want to see a quick way to get Z back in there? Gina, I saw your hand.
Absolutely.
All right. So if we want to get back to the original source, and before, what I could have done before even, you know, getting rid of the Z's is, again, I could have made a copy of this column to preserve the original. And I do that kind of stuff a lot, is I'll copy a column to preserve the original, and then I'll cut up, you know, the copy so that I still have the original and the variation on that column or the iteration that I'm trying to create. So I'm going to insert a column to the left, right? And what I'm going to do, actually, I take that back. Let's do it in here. I want two columns here, and you'll see why. So this one, I'm just going to put the letter Z in. Right? These columns are just temporary. They're going to go away. And now I just do equals concatenate. If I start typing CON, it gives me the autofill of the formula. Concatenate is just never mind what it means. I don't even know where it comes from. It's probably like Latin or something. But we're just combining.
You know, I originally thought Microsoft made up that name. It really is a true name. I never heard of concatenate until Excel came along myself.
Right. I figured it's like probably from like Latin origins or something, having to do with combining. I know con. Generally, is it Anglo-Saxon languages, you know, or you know, like English and Latin and Spanish and all the ones that use the same alphabet. The three letters con generally mean with, right? The word con in Spanish, I believe, actually does mean literally with, right? Con, with. Anyway, arroz con pollo, right? Rice and chicken. Anyway, that's like the little bit of culture I have in me. So concatenate. Just type the first three letters and hit the tab key, and you'll be there. Basically, what I want to do is combine what's, you know, the Z, comma, what's in the first column. Close parentheses, and then just copy and paste that down. Right? that gets me that back in there. Now what I want to do is I don't want to leave these two columns in here. I just needed to do that to reconstruct the original SKU. But keep in mind, these now are the product code and the product number. The product number is standing on its own at this point because we just extracted the number portion of it using the delimited text to columns command. But the product code, remember, is still based on a formula which is counting on the first 3 letters being the product code. So before I change this column back to where it's got the Z's in them, I need to change this formula. I need to harden it so that it's no longer formula based and it's just got the results, right? I saw something pop up in the chat. What have we got? Oh, Gina, you posted the definition?
I posted the definition, yes.
Link things together in a chain or series. Some words may be concatenated such that certain sounds are omitted. I like that. See, I love learning stuff, especially stuff like that. Thank you, Gina. That's awesome. So, before I'm
sorry, I have to put Michael's comment. Word nobody would ever use outside of Excel.
Right. Well, you know what? Maybe now I'm going to start using it, Mike. At the next cocktail party, I'm going to find a way to work in the word concatenate just to throw people off. We'll find out who the Excel enthusiasts are in the crowd right away. All right, so before I reconstruct the SKU to have the Z's in it, if I do that right now, so for example, if I take this, go away. If I take this and I just paste it in, it crashes. Actually, it just completely crashed my formula. I'm not sure why. Oh, because this in itself is a formula. So that's not going to work. So if I take this and I paste the value, right, that ruins my product code because now it's taking the Z, the B, and the V, and it's leaving off the G. So it's important to think these things through before you do them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to harden the product code so that it's no longer a formula-based thing. So I'm going to highlight the whole range, Control-C to copy, okay? And then anywhere on the selected range, doesn't really matter. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to choose Paste Values. So what this is doing before I click on it is it's taking the values, the results of the formula, and it's pasting the values, the results of those formulas over the formula. So it's a quick way to harden what's in the cell from a formula to a value. So now when I choose the paste value option, notice there's no longer a formula in here. It just has the product code. Okay, so that way now for my next trick, I can take the reconstructed SKU, Control-C, highlight the whole range. Same thing. This time, instead of pasting a cell's own value onto itself, I'm pasting one cell's value onto another. Paste values. Now I've got my codes. Notice now this has got 2 Z's in it because it's got the one from here and the one that I used to reconstruct it. But now I'm done with these 2 columns. So now what I've got is my original SKU back, but I've managed to separately get my product code and my product number in 2 separate columns. Okay? One other thing, and this comes up a lot in other contexts. I've seen it a lot where, we're converting bank statements, for example, to do a cleanup job. And so we have bank statements from last year, and the way the statement is formatted, it only gives you the month and day of the transaction. So you drop it in after you convert it, and Excel comes in and says, oh, we're going to stick the current year on that because clearly it's a date. So now you have a bunch of dates in 2017 that really should be 2016, right? So you can fix that with a simple search and replace, right? But here we have an added challenge because I have data that spans over, I think, like a 3-year period in this data set, right? So it's not like I can highlight the whole range and change all the years from one to another. Normally, a simple find and replace would do that. So we're going to do a couple of things here that's going to serve a couple of purposes. First of all, similarly to how I extracted some of the components of the SKU, I want to extract some of the components of the order date. And you'll see why and where this really comes in handy. But what I really want is we're going to insert 2 columns here because I want the year and I want the month. And I want that month in alpha format. So, but let's do the easy part first. The first thing is the year, and we're going to say equals year, open parentheses, and just point to the date. click on the date. So now that gives me a result of what the year is based on this date. Also, I hate the way these dates are formatting. So I want to fix this. We lost someone else. Somebody else just dropped off. Everybody hates me. So I want to change the date format to something that I can read. I personally love the double-digit month, month, day, and year, right? Because then everything lines up perfectly, even when you're in a single-digit month, right?
So after you made your comment, everybody hates you, you got more hearts on Facebook.
I wasn't looking for validation and attention. I was only kidding. I hear the chime every time somebody leaves. Oh, it was Tiffany, but she at least said, "Bye, everyone. I'll be sure to watch the video to see what I've missed." All right, so she had somewhere to be.
This
And
really is important for bank statements that come in with crazy stuff on credit cards,
Yep.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and like I said, a lot of statements are formatted to only show in the transaction date the month and day. So when you drop it in, it'll just by default put the current year in there. So you have to, that's usually, like I said, easily fixed with a search and replace. You just search for 2017 and replace it with 2016, assuming it's last year that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
But here I can't do that because, like I said, the date range spans over like a 3-year period. So now I've got my dates formatted in a way that I like, and I've got my year extracted. So I'm just going to paste that formula down. Now the month is going to be a little trickier. I'll start off simple and then we'll expand on it. This way that should make it, nice and easy to follow. Sarah Prevost says, "Good morning." She's on the Facebook feed. Good morning, Sarah. So what I want to do now is I want to add another tab at the bottom here. And I often will have, especially when I'm working with data like this, a tab that I'll create, and I usually call it tables. Because that's what it's for. It's for tables that I want to create, right? So this is going to be a table that describes the months of the year, both in terms of the month number and the alpha version. So I have number 1 is January, right? Let's just write a quick formula, take the previous 1 plus 1, just a quick way to get 12 down there. And now we're going to use the autofill because Excel recognizes certain lists. So I can drag down, and it recognizes the January abbreviation, so it knows to increment the months as I drag that down. Okay, so now if I really want to get crazy, and I do because I'm just crazy with Excel, what I want to do is I want to define a name. So I went into my formulas tab. I'm going to define a name. I'm going to call it months. This just makes it a little easier to write the formula that I'm going to write in a few minutes. Okay, and then as long as I've defined a range like that, I like to, make it clear that I've got kind of a range here. So I just sort of color code it so that it's super clear to me. Okay, now the first thing is we're going to just use a simple month formula. We're going to ignore the table I just created, and we want to pull the month number out of here. So I say equals month, open parentheses, point to the date, close parentheses, and this is pulling out month 11 because this is November 12th, 2004, right? Again, I'll copy and paste that down, and so now I have the month number, which is useful, but like I said earlier, if I want to run a pivot table and I want something that's nice and visual that makes it really clear, what month I'm looking at, I really want the alpha version of the month. I don't want this in here. So 2 ways I could do that. I could add another column, right, and do a VLOOKUP on whatever's here in the month column and pull in the corresponding alpha month. But I'm all about efficiency, and I really don't need this column with the month numerically here. So I'm going to combine those two processes into one. In other words, what we're going to learn to do now is we're going to write a VLOOKUP, a vertical lookup, that has this month formula inside of it and says, give me the result of this month formula and look that up in the table and give me the alpha result, right? So now, so this is going to be again, a few things combined into one. So feel free to interrupt me, if you have any questions or you want me to review something again. So I'm going to delete the formula out of this one, and we're going to say equals VLOOKUP, right? Open parentheses, and focus your attention here in the formula bar. It's just a little easier way to look at what I'm doing in the tiny little cell over there. All right. I'm going to type the word month, open parentheses. I'm going to, now because of the way it's kind of showing me where the cell actually is, it's hard, I can't really click into there, right? Because the formula itself is overriding it. But really what I want here is I want column J, row 2. So right in there, I'll just manually type J2. So that gets me back my original formula, right? I'm looking up the month of J2, comma, that's going to produce a result of 11, if I remember correctly, right? Because that was the month number. While I'm in the formula editing mode, I can't expand the column width because that's another way of fixing that. So if you really want to see it, we can widen this up, excuse me, so that there's plenty of room. And let's start again. VLOOKUP. I forgot the equal sign. That's important. So equals VLOOKUP. Month. See, now I've got plenty of room so I can just click on it. J2. Comma. Now remember, I named the range now. Because now I want to tell it, I told it what I'm looking for. Now I need to tell it where to look for it. Then I need to tell it where to find the result when it finds a match. So I used a name. F3 on your keyboard is a paste name command. F function 3. So now I can just grab the name months, because remember I named that whole range months. This way I don't have to sit there clicking on the other tab and highlighting the whole range. I just have a name that I can use. It also makes copying and pasting the formula easier because now I don't have to worry about the relative or absolute referencing, which I'll explain in a minute. So I'm looking up the month of J2. Where I'm looking for it is in that range that I called months, comma, where is it going to find a result when it finds a match? It always looks in the first column to find the match, right? So I'm counting on that number being in the first column of that range, which we did. We organized it that way. We had the number, then the alpha month. So it's when it finds 11, it's going to look in the first column for 11. And now I need to tell it that column 2 is where the result is when it finds the match. Okay, so at this point, it's kind of simple. It's VLOOKUP, the month of J2 in the range called months, and the result is in the second column. One other thing, comma, false, which means only give me an exact match. Now, in this case, it shouldn't matter. You would never get like a partial match in a case like this, but it's just good practice to defer or default to the false portion of this as the portion of this. You only want an exact match when you're doing a lookup. It's generally going to be the case that that's what you want. It's rare that you'll want to use true, which is where if it doesn't find an exact match, it'll find the highest number or the closest number to it, in incremental order. All right, so sure enough, it gives me the result of November because, again, it pulled the month number out of here, which was an 11. It went and looked it up in this range. It found the 11, and it gave me the result in the second column, which was November. Now I can take this whole thing and copy it down. And the beauty of this is I was able to just copy it down. If I hadn't named the range, right, then the range would have looked like this. Although now it recognizes that what I've selected is the range that's got a name. So let's say this was the range. Notice it's got now the direct reference to the range in the Tables tab, cells E2 through F13. If that was how I had organized this, instead of using a named range, then copying it down would have crashed. I'd have to put $ here to hold these references constant so that when I copied it down, they wouldn't update, right? Because this is, I need the range to be the same no matter what, where it's looking this stuff up. Anybody got any questions on that so far? Nobody? Anybody? Everybody?
I don't see any questions.
I didn't see in your formula where it called out the tables.
It's in the named range. So remember, I named the table. In the Tables tab, I named this range and I called it months.
Oh, okay. All right.
So in the formula, it has the named range months, which is in the Tables tab. So in fact, that's why I did it, because it's much more efficient to write the formula that way. So now what I've done is I've got the year and I've got the month. each in their own separate column, so that I can organize the dates accordingly when I want to start sort of reporting on this data. Okay, so next thing I can do is, first of all, let's save this because we don't want to lose our data, our changes. Let's highlight the range, and let's sort the whole thing by order date. Okay, so now we can see we've got 2004. Right, lot from 2004. Now, if I wanted to, though, because it's really easy to see where one year ends and the next one begins. Let's say these were all, for some reason, 3 years off. Right, I could go in and from here on up, I could do a search and replace, knowing that I've got a range selected that only includes orders in 2004, and I could do a search and replace. I could say find 2004 and replace that with 2007. Right, so I could very quickly update the years using the find and replace and doing that for each year. Right, so again, now that I've got the pieces of data extracted, there's a lot that I can do to sort of manipulate this data to get what I need out of it. That was funny. I thought I had answered.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Whose phone was ringing?
Hello, you're live on Seth David Zoom In with Friends or something like that. Okay, now we're going to have some fun. So the next thing we want to do with something like this is we want to turn on our filters. So I've highlighted the whole range. I'm in my data tab here. We're going to click the filter button. Excel is pretty smart this way. It knows how to get the filters on there, and it knows exactly how to do it. So let's say now I wanted to, let's go back and sort by order date. Let's say it wasn't organized so neatly and chronologically. Order date, okay. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I didn't want that. Did I want that? Let's sort it by SKU number. I just want it not sorted by date. Perfect. This way my dates are all over the place. Let's say for some reason I don't want to resort the list, but while I've got it sorted by SKU number, I want to only see 2004. Well, I can go into my order date, right? And I can choose only 2004. And that works, right? If you want to clear out what you've done in the filters, because this can get messy, especially if I did this and then I said, I want to see all the 2004 orders, but only condiments. So this becomes a reporting mechanism, and a powerful one at that. Probably much more powerful, I'd argue, than what we have in any of our accounting products out there. Which is why a lot of times I'm a big fan of running detailed reports in QB or QBO and getting them into Excel, because then I can do this stuff with it, and it's very easy. Because now I just, it takes a little bit of time to organize and format the data, but now that I'm there, I can very easily, do what I just did. I can filter it. Now, but also I didn't necessarily need to filter the order date by year because I have the year in its own column. I could have actually just filtered the year, right? But, so now I have a number of different ways to approach things. But watch this trick. So first of all, once I've got more than one column filtered and I can lose track, one way to reset your report, so to speak, is to click this clear button. Again, we're on our data tab, and if I click clear, it just clears out all the filters. It resets everything. So I know I'm back to sort of square one. But there's some other little kind of hidden things here in the filters command, and this works in Google Sheets too, by the way, that are really useful. Let's say I had not extracted the product code from the SKU number, right? I could still actually get it filtered by product code, and here's how. I know that the product code for beverages is BVG. I can click on this filter for the SKU, right? And in the search, I can type BVG. And it gives me the preview. It shows me, okay, so this is what I'm going to get back for you, is all these ones that have BVG in it. In other words, this little search in the filters works really, really well. And I can click OK, and that's all my beverages, right? And I have nothing but. And then again, I can hit clear to reset that. Okay, there's other ways to filter. You can actually sort by color. And I'll tell you where this can come in really handy. I could create a conditional format, right, that says, for example, I want to see all the order totals that are over $10,000. Watch this trick. I'm going to highlight this whole range. And it's funny, for years I've used the keyboard shortcut on this, so I sometimes forget where to go to find the conditional formatting, but it's actually right in the Home tab here where it says Conditional Formatting. So now I want to create a conditional format, and here's highlight cell rules. So let's just, use the stuff they've built in to make it easy. I want to go based on format cells that are greater than, and it's funny, I don't know where it gets that number from, but it's giving me a possible result that I might want to use. I want anything that's greater than 9,999. And I don't know if you saw in the background, but as I was typing that out, it started working, right? So I typed the first 9. Oops, I'm hitting stars. 9,000, everything highlights because everything is greater than 9 in here. 99, another 9. Now it's more filtered. One more 9 because really I want everything $10,000 and up. Right, and here I can choose some standard conventions as far as how to format that. Let's go with yellow fill with dark yellow text. I'll click OK. But now watch what I can do now that I've done that, because what that does is it automatically, notice, color codes this, right? But now in here, I can sort by color. So there's a nice quick way to isolate all the orders with totals of more than $10,000. Cool? We like? Everybody already knew that trick. Okay, we have 10 minutes left, and I want to show you the holy grail of the spreadsheet, also known as pivot tables. All right, everybody ready for pivot tables? Or have I completely lost everyone?
No,
people
go for
are
it.
just so astonished by what you've done that there is no comment possible.
Gina, you're too kind.
Ditto.
All right. I'm just going to go into data and clear everything. That won't clear the conditional formatting, though. So we can go back to Home, Conditional, Manage Rules. So if you want to see the existing conditional formatting rules you've created, you go to Manage Rules. And this way I can just kind of select this and say, delete rule, go away. I don't want you anymore. Because the other thing I could do, by the way, let's get this resorted by SKU real quick. There's different ways to do the same thing. Somehow it doesn't seem like that worked. Sort by SKU. A to Z data clear. How am I still showing order totals over $10,000? That's very strange. But okay.
See, this is what happens to me. I get stuck somewhere and I'm lost. How's it doing this? I don't know.
So it may be that I went too fast and it's only sorted that one column. So I may have screwed up my data. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to use my undo. I have a feeling that's what it did, because this should be now sort of back in proper order. So now we'll get rid of the conditional formatting rule. There's always a way out, Gina.
For you, maybe.
all I did was undo, right? Let's go back to sorting this by SKU just to be sure we're sorted by SKU, and we are. Okay, yeah, so I have a feeling that's what I did. That's why you got to be really careful when you do this kind of stuff with sorting. Really, the golden rule is make sure you highlight your whole range before you sort anything. That way you know you're sorting on the whole range and not just a single column. Because if you sort a single column and ignore the rest, you've now mismatched all your data, right? So that's important. So the other way, and another way to do this without, without the possibility of screwing the data up, would be to use the filter. So I could do a filter on the order total, right? And I can say number filters greater than 9999. Okay. And now it actually just filters the whole list out, right? And now if I want to color code these, this is a fun command. I've cheated. I've already pre-programmed. I do this every time I install Excel on a new computer, is this select visible cells command. Because if I don't use that and I highlight this whole range, I'm actually highlighting everything that's hidden in between, right? Just because it's filtered doesn't mean it's not there. So choosing select visible cells will select only the visible cells, which is cool because then I can do something like this and like that on the background on the font, and let's make them nice and bold. And now if I clear my filters out, I've got all those ones that were more than 10,000 in the entire row now formatted differently, right? So that's another way. Again, there's like 6 ways to do the same thing here. It really depends on what you're going for and what you're trying to get at and which way you know best and what's going to be the most efficient way to get it done without screwing up your data, right? So the way I just did it here is a more surefire way of doing it without screwing up your data. Sorting can be dangerous because, again, if I've got just the column selected and I sorted it on color, I should have gotten a warning, but I obviously I didn't, but I think that's what happened earlier is I probably screwed up and mismatched the stuff. Anyway, let's go back. We'll undo that, blah, blah, blah. Clear. Go home. All right, now we're going to do pivot tables, which is like the ultimate kind of report in the last 5 minutes of the morning. But the reality is, you're going to see, now that we've got the data really nicely organized, it makes the pivot tables really easy to create. And all the pivot table is it's a reporting template. Imagine that you could go into QuickBooks Online and start with a blank report screen and pick any field, right? Any piece of data and say, here's what I want in my columns and here's what I want in my rows. And then I want to drop something else in the rows underneath the first thing so I can subtotal accordingly. And I can subtotal 2, 3, 4 levels deep if I want to, right? One of the issues with any accounting software that I've ever used is that I can't subtotal beyond 1 level, right? I can run reports and get a total on something, but only at the first level. There's no way to say subtotal primarily by this criteria and then secondarily by something else. Pivot tables let you do that all day long. So we're going to go to Insert and our tabs across the top, and we're going to say Pivot Table. Excel's pretty smart. It figures out the range that I want to use as my source data. So pretty much you can just click OK at this point without really having to do anything. And now it creates my report template. On the left in the spreadsheet is where the report is going to get built as I build it. On the right, I have my fields, which are just all the columns from the tab that I used in the source data, right? And down here at the bottom is where I tell it how I want to organize my report, right? What I want in my rows, what I want in my columns, what's the value? So let's start with the values, and let's assume that we want order total as my value. So it's real simple. Click and drag. And notice what this does now is it automatically just combines it because the only thing I'm showing is the grand total of all the order totals from that tab. Now let's do 2 things real quick. We're going to go to the value field settings here because I want to change the number format so it looks more like a number. We'll use a comma separator and we'll do red with brackets for negative numbers, right? So that formats the number a little better. If I want to confirm for the skeptics out there, let's just total this up. 1,354,458.59. 1,354,458.59. Great. So we know that's working. Now it's time to have some fun. How do we want to see our sales, right? So for the rows, let's start with product category maybe. I don't want to use the code necessarily. And sometimes it's helpful to refer back to the original table to see, I want the category name is what I really want, right? Because if I use the number, nobody's gonna really understand what that means necessarily. So the category name is going to be in my row. So already, notice what that does. I put the category name in my rows. Now it's giving me my order totals for the entire range by category. So now I can see my sales for beverages is 286,000, for condiments 113, and so on and so forth. But remember that this spans a range of like more than 3 years, right? It was like from 2004 to 2007 or something like that. So what might be useful here is to break up my columns accordingly. So let's put the year in my columns. Now you can start to see why it comes in really handy to have the years as its own column, because it made that part really easy to do, right? Imagine if I put the order date in there, I'd have a separate column for each day that somebody ever placed an order. That would be very hard to read, right? But now let's take it a step further and let's put the month within that. Isn't that nice? So our sales in 2004 started in August. Now we've got monthly sales by product category. Pretty nice, right?
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
I love this stuff, but now I want to see the products, right? I don't want to just see the categories. I want to start seeing which products sold really well. So let's take the product and we're going to drag it below the category name so that it's going to start organizing these first by product category, then within that by individual products. So let's take my product, click and drag below category name, and boom, look at that. So now I have beverages, but I can see monthly sales for each product within the beverages category, just like that. This is where it goes well beyond what you could ever do in any accounting software that I've worked with to date, right? Because you can't get the multi-level like this. You know, it's just very hard to do. What else could we do? We're really actually overtime. I don't mind going a couple more minutes.
Well, I want to say that Lisa on Facebook said she had just stumbled onto this. How can I access the recording later to watch from the beginning? Our lovely Alexa responded by saying, save on Facebook. Should also be on Nerd Enterprises website. So I'll let you finish.
Yes, that is exactly right. So the one for sure go-to place to catch all of this, I'll bring my screen back up here, is on nerdenterprises.com. Tomorrow morning, sometime shortly after I wake up, I will render the recording of this video, put a little intro on it, upload it to YouTube and Vimeo, and when it's up, you'll find it under podcasts right here where it says Zoom In with Seth David. When you click on this, it will take you into all the previous episodes. Here was last week's on Atlas. Prior to that, we did Prepare for Your Presentation Like a Pro. So all that's going to be in here. And, of course, this one is always here with the registrations for upcoming Zooms. Nothing is up yet for next Friday, but maybe we'll do a part 2 of this, you know, just really taking it to the next level in terms of the pivot tables and everything else. I haven't decided what I'm doing yet next week. I also have people from Atlas now interested in having somebody come back and present so we can take another look at that product if you all want. But yeah, this is where to go. You're also going to find it in the Facebook group because remember I posted the link here in between Wall and Main. And the other thing I usually do is I pin this, which I don't know if it'll let me do it now while it's like, yeah, it will. So this is going to be a pinned post in the group and I always leave this up for the whole week. Right? So until we do next week's Zoom In, you'll always find last Friday's Zoom In as the pinned post in the group. So that's the other way. So because we recorded live to Facebook today. So there's really 2 recordings. One is the Facebook live recording. The other one is going to be, you know, the lightly edited, really, I just put the intro on it and throw it up here where you can catch it on my site. Because, you know, in a week or a month from now, this is going to get a little harder to find, you know, in the timeline here. And of course, it's also on my Facebook page, which is really the source of it right now, is on the Nerd Enterprises Inc. Facebook page. And so again, and like I said at the beginning, if you like this stuff, if you want to be able to learn this kind of stuff from me all week long, just join 97 and up. And you have 2 opportunities every week plus Friday mornings to learn from me, all this kind of stuff, any of this kind of stuff, plus the stuff we actually do in the course, which is outlined here, everything from building a plan for your business, to learning how to create content, to learning how to use social media to promote that content, to learning how to manage your practice now that it's raining clients in your business, and client management, and then more e-commerce, how to use WooCommerce so you can take payments on your website very easily and set up your own subscriptions, how to build reports, exactly this kind of stuff that we did today. And then I have a reading and podcast list that I'm sort of building into the course as my suggested reading. This is all part of the 97 and Up program, which of course also gives you access to every other course that's on my site. Just go to subscription-based training and you can see that here. And if you don't want to spend $97 a month for $25 a month, you have access to all the courses except for this one. That's it. That's my sales pitch for the day. I hope you all enjoyed my Excel class, and we'll see you all in Gina's Hangout later today, right?
Absolutely.
When, where, why, how?
No, it's just what you see is what you get. But we'll be introducing Ada Barley. She will be next week with Google Forms.
Excellent. That's right. I saw that. I saw a notification that you had Ada coming to do that. That's awesome. Ada's wonderful. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed
so
her.
Much fun on that day. I'm going to bring her on to mine, and we'll be doing it. And we're doing it actually as a little workshop, which will be a little bit different. All the panelists will be able to participate. Hopefully,
nice.
They will be creating their own forms themselves as we're going along.
That's brilliant. I almost did that today. I almost gave you a link to download the Excel sheet that I worked with, but I was afraid that might slow things down if I was waiting for everybody to sort of catch up and do it. That's the only reason I decided not to.
You're way too fast for us. You are like, here I am.
Well, hopefully I didn't go too fast. And again, you can catch the recording, pause it, play it, learn it, practice it. And if you actually, that's the other thing, going back to the question about where to find this, the one thing you'll find on my website that you won't find in the live Facebook feed is I'll give you a link to download this template. I'll give you two versions, the clean one that is untouched that I started with, and the one I finished with, so that you can kind of, play with it from both ends. Try and take the original raw one and create what I created by going through the video step by step, pausing and doing what you just learned, and then having the finished one, so that you can see what it should look like and play around with that one as well. So I'll give you the links to download those templates right in the post when I put it up live. Absolutely for fun and for free. Larry, thank you for the inspiration today.
Love you, Larry.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the class. Very good. Can't wait for part 2.
All right, part 2 we'll do next week.
Thank you.